All right, what we're going to do here is go through a quick demo on how to use MATLAB. And again, I'm going to encourage you to send me those questions that you have. If you don't have questions, I can't help you. So what you should do is open MATLAB, however you can open it. So I have MATLAB open on my computer here, and it's an incredibly large font, so hopefully you can see what I'm doing through the YouTube video. I'm going to go through a little presentation here, and the goals here are we're going to get to know MATLAB, get to know how to use the desktop of MATLAB. We're also going to get to know how to interact with MATLAB, and MATLAB you can use like a calculator. You can also use it to run functions. We're going to then go through and write and save a program and a function, okay? And then we're going to learn how to actually load up the data that we need to load up for the first assignment, and I will show you how to create a climograph. So the nice thing about MATLAB is that there are a number of functions built into MATLAB, and you can find these functions either through the MathWorks website. If you type MATLAB and functions, you'll see a list of functions. I will provide you with a list of frequently used functions, the FAF, if you will, that's frequently asked functions, frequently used functions, okay, and if there are other things that you would like to do, again, let me know. The nice thing about these functions is that you can type the word help space the function name. So, for example, in MATLAB, there's a function called mean, which basically takes the average of whatever data you send in, and I can type help mean, and what MATLAB returns to me is basically here's how you use mean, and what it actually requires is that you enter in mean and then whatever variables you want to enter. So if I had the values 4 and 6, we know that the mean of those is going to be 5. So that's how you would actually use the function mean. But do use the MATLAB help function. It's quite useful. And also do check out the MathWorks website. Provides a number of ways in how to use MATLAB. So let's talk about the MATLAB desktop here very briefly. If you open up your MATLAB desktop, you will see that there are a number of windows that are embedded within the MATLAB program. Okay, and I just want to point out what these windows are. There's a command window. That's where you actually see these two little carrots, and that's where it's basically asking you to, it's prompting the user for input. So it waits there and it says, give me something, have me do some work. Okay, that's where you're going to be doing most of your heavy lifting. There's a workspace window. Okay, and that's where if you actually have variables, that's where the variables will be stored. There's a current directory window, and that should be up here. It basically tells you where you are, and that will be important because when you create functions or you have data, you need to be sure that you're in the right. You're either in the right place in the directory, so where MATLAB can actually see your variables or your functions. Okay, or you need to put that in your path. And then there's also something called the command history window. And you'll see this here. It might be under window or desktop. You might find that under window or desktop. So for example, if I go under my MATLAB, I'll see that it is under desktop. There's something called command history. And so this is going to be very useful in the event that you had done something, in the previous 5 minutes of MATLAB that was working for you, and you wanted to actually go back and recall what that was. You can open up your command history, and it will come up with a list of, the last, however many lines you've typed in. Okay, and this is often useful, something very useful. You might want to save this file and refer back to it at a later time. Okay, so let me just show you how to create a variable here. I'm going to create a variable called a, and we're going to make it equal to 2 plus 2. Okay, and when we do that, fortunately I need to shrink my screen a bit here. It's a little large. Alright, so when we do that, we can see that in our workspace we now have a variable called a. Okay, and so this is a scalar value. This is like using MATLAB like a calculator. Also in MATLAB, it's very useful for creating arrays. An array is basically a one-dimensional string of numbers. So for example, say I wanted the numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5, and I wanted to store that in A, I would do basically this command, and I would actually lead by opening a square bracket enter the numbers, and then close by square bracket, and I hit enter. And what we'll see now is that A is a matrix and it has 4 values in it. Okay. If we go back to the presentation here, what you can do is a number of things. So you can define scalar variables. One thing that I will point out is this one function called clear here, and if you type clear, it will erase everything that you have in your memory. So only type clear if you know what you're doing. Don't type clear if you're just at the very end of your work. If you type clear, you have to start all over. So don't do that. You can clear individual variables though. So if you wanted to, if I was back in MATLAB here and I created a variable B6, you can see over in the workspace here I have a variable A and a variable B. I don't want this variable B anymore. I could clear that by just typing clear B and it goes away. Okay, you can see that it goes away in your workspace. All right. Also the matrices I mentioned, so we defined that one-dimensional matrix before, okay, and we can also define a two-dimensional matrix. So in this case, we will just define that variable y there, okay, and what we'll see here is that y now is 2 dimensions, right? There are a number of columns, there are 3 columns, there are 2 rows, okay, and that becomes pretty important when you create your before you create your climograph, you're going to have to organize your data so that you have 12 months by 50 years or whatever the case may be. All right, so let's go back and we'll talk about creating a program in MATLAB. And the way that we can do this, MATLAB has the ability for you to do things through the command line like I just showed you, but you can also write files, and these are basically scripts or functions that you can define. And what we're going to do is create a very simple function. We're going to create a function that converts between Fahrenheit and Celsius. And I will actually show you the more advanced version here. And we will create a script. So again, I did that by going to new, I went to File, New, Script, and boom, I get a new editor. And this new editor can allow me to do all sorts of things. We're going to define a function here, and we're just going to call it function. And the way that a function works, it's very much like we used earlier with that function mean. The output variable, output variable is what's returned from the function, and we'll call this function convert F to C, and it requires data in F. Okay, so what happens here, what this function will do is you input something in degrees Fahrenheit and it returns something in degrees Celsius. And this is what you will need to be doing for your assignment. You won't really need this function for your assignment, but I wanted to show you how to create a function. Okay, and all we need to do here is basically know the conversion between Fahrenheit and Celsius, and what it is data in degrees Fahrenheit minus 32 divided by 1.8. Okay? Simple one-line function. We can now save this function. Okay? I would suggest doing a save as and convert and saving it in a folder that you're in currently. Okay? Or a folder called your name / geog401 and do all your work in that folder. So I'm going to save this function here, and I'm going to recall what I'm saving it as, convert F to C. Okay. And then when I go back into my workspace, I can now use that function. And the way I use that function, let's just say let's make some fake data up, temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and let's just say we have 12, 15, we have really cold temperatures. 10, 5, 60, 40. Doesn't matter what you type in, just type in a one-dimensional array. Okay, and now we're going to actually convert that to degrees Celsius. So we can do temp C, and now we use that function structure that we just typed. Right. So look at that function structure. Output equals convert F to C, and the data in degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so we're going to mirror that. We're going to mirror that here, and let me make the screen a bit smaller here so we can see how this works. All right. Okay, temp C, right? equals, and we want to say convert F to C, convert F to C, temp F. And that's all we do. And what we will find is if we type temp C and we type temp F, see, temp F was the data that we entered initially in degrees Fahrenheit, and temp C is the conversion to degrees Celsius. Okay, you would do the same thing to convert between inches and millimeters using that simple conversion factor of 1 inch equals 25.4 millimeters. All right, and that's how you basically make a function. It's quite simple, can be useful. Let's go on and talk about loading in data. And I'm going to refer to you to the previous video I posted on actually uploading this data, okay, into MATLAB. And I will return to this and show you how to make climagraphs once you've loaded that data in.